We're dinking around with Eddie and Webby. Dinking around with Eddie and Webby tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a bad feeling about this. Oh, hey, how's it going? This is Webby, not Eddie.
And I'm Eddie, and this is our 64th Dinking Around.
Oh, yeah, episode number 64.
That's right. These episodes are made possible by our friends over at Valere Pickleball. And I got to tell you guys, if you want to get your hands on some of the best paddles and the best equipment in the game, go to Valere.com and use coupon code PB for life to be able to get what, Webby?
You'll get 10% off your order, and you're going to help out our podcast in the process.
That's right. We are really appreciative and grateful for our friends over at Valere. Check out Valere Pickleball. You will not be disappointed.
That's right. And Eddie, I've got a question for you.
What in the world is in that drink? What you got in that drink?
That's right. What in the world is in that drink? And I would love to know what you're drinking tonight, Eddie.
Well, to round out my series of spiked hard seltzers from Fort Myers Brewing Company, this is flavor number 4, pineapple. And when you buy a 12-pack of these at Publix, you get all 4 flavors: cherry limeade, watermelon, orange, and pineapple. 0 carbs, 0 sugars, 90 calories, and it tastes absolutely incredible. And while I sip on this, Webby, why don't you please share what's in your drink?
Well, that sounds very tasty. Today, I'm actually drinking something I've never had before. Last week, I was drinking Bell's Two-Hearted Ale, and I actually purchased a variety pack, and this was in there, and it's called Cold-Hearted IPA, and it's described as a cold IPA. I don't think I even really know what that means. Do you know what a cold IPA is?
I have no clue. I've heard of hazy IPAs, black IPAs, American IPA. I have no idea what that means.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be tasty. I love most of what Bell's makes, especially the Two-Hearted lineup of beers. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers to you, my friend. Please describe it, Webby. I'm curious to know what it tastes like.
Interesting. It's very good, very clean. It's just like a lighter, almost more refreshing version of Two-Hearted, if that makes sense. But I'm liking it. My first sip was very good. And yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy this.
Love me some IPAs. There's always a good time and place for that in my life. Just like it's time for...
Now it's time for Memes of the Week. Yeah!
That's right. Memes of the Week. One of my most favorite segments here in the entire pickleball podcast landscape. And Webby, I think this week we should start with you. Do you have any incredible memes that you have selected for us and the entire audience out there?
Yeah, I actually have a couple that I want to show off this week. This first one that I have, it comes from Memes of Pickleball. It looks like it was actually a collaboration with The Kitchen Pickleball as well. We have a singles match featuring Ryan Sharebear Sherry versus Julian Arnold, and the caption that goes along with it says, "It may only be April, but we officially have our paddle smash of the year." Yeah, that was quite a paddle smash.
Yes, it was. Wow. I mean, if that happens a lot, like that's a lot of money down the drain of paddles just being demolished on the ground.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been guilty. I've chucked my paddle before. I've thrown it so hard that it actually broke. I feel like I've learned to deal with my anger a little better, but I could see how that could happen. But man, that was intense. That was one heck of a paddle smash.
Yeah, and this post was done in April. It is now May, and I do feel like that still probably has the award for best paddle smash of the year. So, but yeah, luckily I have never gotten so mad that I broke my paddle. I've definitely wanted to smash my paddle, but I've had enough restraint not to, thankfully. But I can definitely understand and relate to people that want to do that. We got another meme here that I brought here this week, and this one comes from our good buddy Maurice the Grease.
This is Spice Adams. He's a former NFL player. He actually just helped present some of the draft picks at the NFL draft over the weekend, but he's also hilarious. His Instagram channel is incredible as well.
He's lurking behind a tree, rubbing his hands, licking his lips, and then the caption that goes along with it says, "Some 3.0 dude ready to correct a girl even though she's better." And I feel like that is so accurate. Like, it doesn't matter how good a female player is, there's always that one guy that has to coach everybody, especially the female players. He'll point out every flaw they make. And then when he gets out to the court, he's definitely not as good of a player as the female that he just gave some coaching to.
So funny. I want to make a book of all the bad advice I've received, but also want to interview a lot of the women out there about the crap that they've heard from some of these guys, because I'm sure it's extensive.
Oh, yeah. And then attached to this post, Maurice has another image, and it's got Bart Simpson. He's pretending to be blind, and he's got a walking stick, and it says his own mistakes. But then it shows Bart Simpson with a telescope, and it says her mistakes. So that is also very accurate. So like they pick on somebody, they focus on like every little minute detail of their playing ability. And then when it comes to them, they see nothing wrong with how they play, even though they usually make a lot of mistakes.
It happens. I mean, got to protect your ego, right? It's
Yep.
God, we see pros doing that, not even amateurs. We see pros doing that sometimes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's sad, but I get it. We're all humans, right?
That's right. But thank you, Maurice. Also, thank you, Memes of Pickleball. But what about you, Eddie? What kind of memes are you bringing this week?
So usually I like to pick funny memes, things like that, but I'm going to play it for you, and then I think you'll understand why I think this is so important. This actually comes from Sorry Not Sorry Pickleball, but it's a clip from the podcast on the Dink. It's got Zane Navratil and Leah Jansen, and I'm going to go ahead and play it here.
I think we need a PPA hooks of the week. I think that's the main takeaway from this podcast. Chris Cantino should do that. That guy, Cali Chris. Wait, is that Chris Cantino?
No,
It's Cali Chris.
Callie Chris. Oh my gosh, yeah, he should make that something like his podcast would go viral.
Yeah.
I was complaining to him about, I was showing him the replay, and he was like, oh yeah, I heard her talking. She was like laughing with her ref friends and saying like Leia's all pissed and like, I don't care. I'm like, so professional. A fan can hear this. Awesome.
Yikes. All right. Chris Callie, we're hand feeding it to you. You got to do PPA hooks of the week, dude. I think that's a good call. That'll go viral.
So, as you can see, this was an excerpt from the Pickleball podcast. For those of you guys that don't know, Leah Jansen got hooked pretty bad during a singles match. I think it was at PPA LA. It's basically where you are intentionally calling a ball out or in, I guess, that isn't in order to be able to gain an advantage over your opponent. She actually pulled up the live stream, showed it to the referee that when her opponent had said, was that in or out, the referee had made the call that really the replay from PPA showed it was definitely not what Leia had called. Well, basically, Leia had, after the game was over, or match, I believe, she pulled up her phone and even showed the ref, and the ref was basically like, yeah, there's nothing I can do about it now, which I think the ref was just following the rules at that point. But for her to make a comment like that, not cool. But this brings up a much bigger conversation, right? And by the way, Chris Callie at Sorry Not Sorry Pickleball, I definitely think that you should have a hook of the week segment. But
Yes.
in order to be able to have a hook of the week segment, I really do think that we need to be able to have a way to make these line challenges in a much better way, being able to see if the ball was in or out. And let's face it, the PPA's current setup is not cutting it. Have you watched much PPA lately, Webby, and seen all the amount of challenges that are coming through?
Yeah, and it's not good.
It's not good. You can't see where the ball's hitting the ground. It's not really, I mean, sometimes it's helping the referee be able to make the decision, but I feel like at this point, 25% of them, it's not definitive whether the ball is in or out given the current setup for it, right? Which is another reason that blows me away why a lot of these organizations aren't willing to use close call replay, the replay system that Kyle Salenko and I put together that gives you 240 frames per second, 6 cameras on your court to be able to give you as close to 100% certainty on whether or not a ball was in or out. So in order to be able to do this hook of the week segment, I think that would be great, but you need to be able to have better technology to support it. And to go even beyond that, I think that we should really start having penalties in place for opponents who are making consistently bad line calls. And I know this isn't really a topic, Webby. This is supposed to be memes of the week, but I just want to ask your opinion. Do you think that we need to get to a point in pickleball where people can still make their own line calls, but there are going to be penalties or something that will happen to you if you continue to make incorrect calls?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think there absolutely should be penalties when people are proven to regularly make bad calls. I'm still blown away that nobody is implementing close call replay regularly yet. I mean, I feel like it's a no-brainer. I still don't get why that's not happening. Like we've said before, people will take pickleball so much more seriously if there is a good replay system out there, and this will absolutely cut down on bad calls, especially if people get penalized when it's proven that they make a bad call. So it blows my mind that it's not a regular thing at all of the pro tournaments right now.
Well, I definitely agree with you there. And we want to know what you guys think. Number one, do you think that we should demand that there are better replay systems in place if we're going to allow for line challenges for pros? And number two, do you think that there should be penalties for consistently making bad calls, whatever that looks like, right? Let us know down in the comments below. We definitely want to be able to hear what you guys think. But Webby, I think it's time for...
Now it's time for Topics of the Week.
That's right. It's time for Topics of the Week. And sometimes we both bring our own topics to the table. Sometimes we have a guest to talk about a specific topic. And tonight is one of the nights where we do have a guest joining us. Today, we are excited to be joined by one half of the Pickleball Studio podcast. He also has an awesome pickleball YouTube channel of his own. Please welcome to the show, Pickleball Will. How's it going, man?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be with y'all right now. So yeah, let's get this show on the road.
Let's do it. Yeah, I've been a big fan of your content. We got to meet each other for the first time last year at the Beer City Open, but this is the first time having you on our podcast. So I just want to get a little bit of your background. How long have you been involved in pickleball, and what was your first paddle that you ever used?
Okay, well, I guess it's been now close to 4 years, maybe 3.5. I started much like everybody else during lockdown, pandemic. I did play maybe once before that, but it wasn't until like the lockdown that I kind of started taking it more seriously, or just playing a lot more frequently. Like I got the bug. Yeah, but you know what I mean when you say I got the bug, right? You're just playing every day, driving an hour and a half just for games. And let me see, my first paddle was a wooden paddle. It was like a Kanga paddle from like Pickleball Central. I got it with the net, but the paddle that I first purchased, separate paddle I first purchased, was a Rally Pro 2, I think, also from Pickleball Central. And I played with that for at least like 6 months.
I'm surprised you didn't say the Onyx Z5. Is that, or Onyx Z5? Yeah, that seems to be like everyone's first paddle that they start off with, or at least their first like mid-level paddle.
I mean, I saw a lot of people had it, but also even at the time, I thought it was very loud and obnoxious. And when I first started playing pickleball, I actually, as much as I loved it, I actually really hated the sound of pickleball striking a paddle. Now I don't mind it. I actually kind of like it, but when I heard the Z5, I was like, oh, never. I'm never ever getting that thing. And if you played with it, I was like, oh, I don't want to play with you. But I just thought the wooden paddles and some of the other ones just sounded way better.
Yeah, I was genuinely curious what your first paddle was, because I wondered if you got into it late enough to where like there was already enough paddle knowledge out there to where you just bypassed the wooden paddle. So that is interesting to know that you also started with the wooden paddle like a lot of us old timers did.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of paddle reviews when I did. I tried to search on YouTube and go online to see what was out there. And at the time, I think Braden from Pickleball Effect was one of the first people that I found that I thought did some decent videos. And he only had maybe like 3 or 4 videos, maybe not even, but a very small amount of videos at the time from what I remember. And at this time, I think the Franklin Signature from Ben Johns just recently was released not too long ago. And maybe a year or two before that, he was still playing with the Engage paddles. And I think after my Rally Pro 2, the Engage Encore MX 6.0 was my first, or not my first, I guess my first like kind of tournament level like paddle.
That's cool. I definitely want to be able to get into talking about what we've seen in paddle technology in the last couple of years and how it's affecting the game. But before we get to that point, I guess my question for you is, why do you have a passion for reviewing paddles, talking about paddles, paddle technology? Where did that come from, and why is it still something that you seem to be very interested in?
That's a very interesting question because I do like gear and I like paddles. I've always liked gear. Even when I used to play tennis, I used to string rackets and I would collect tennis rackets. And I'm kind of a gearhead and a collector. Growing up, I would collect Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards. You know, Even when I was like really young, me and my friends would collect like Pogs and we'd play Marvel, that kind of thing. That was always kind of me, and it just kind of translated to whatever hobbies I was partaking in. So I've always liked gear, but also I actually don't like gear maybe as much, or reviewing paddles maybe as much as some of the other guys like Chris and John and Braden. I have other interests as well. I can talk about it, but I can only talk about it like so much before my mind wanders off because I like to talk about and do other things. I'm still passionate about it, I would say, and that comes from a partly what I want to do, but also a need. I started doing paddle reviews and making pickleball content in my own is because I would search for content, and I felt like at the time when I first started, the content out there on YouTube was not that great, and I was like, I could do some of this like way better, and I just started making content. And then with the paddles and reviewing them, I've always wanted to make my own YouTube channel. I didn't know what it was going to be about. And of course, I decided to make it pickleball because I love pickleball. But I used my unfair advantages. And I think when I say that, it's because I'm friends with Chris, right? If I wasn't friends with Chris, I might have gone a different path. I do have a few videos on my channel, like teaching, right? Teaching concepts. And I used to be a coach for tennis as well. And I think I'm going to delve a little bit more into that in the future, because paddles are, I mean, they're getting exciting, but also it's getting kind of redundant for me. And if I'm not liking what I'm doing, I don't want to do it. It becomes a chore or a job. But like I said, I'm good friends with Chris. He has a lot of connections. We do talk about gear quite a bit. And, I was going to leverage that to my advantage, and that's why I started making videos. And then one thing led to another. And now I wouldn't say I'm stuck in this kind of sphere as being a paddle reviewer, but that's what people know me for. And it's perfectly fine because I do like gear,
Yeah, and I will say, I do feel like you and Chris are probably the most respected paddle reviewers out there. And I think part of it is because like the quality, the quality of your content is so top notch, and you guys really get down to the nitty gritty when it comes to the paddle details and stuff like that. So yeah, I am a big fan of your paddle reviews, and that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to have you on today, because we do want to talk about paddles and paddle technology and where we're at now in the current state of pickleball and the paddles that we're using. So you said you've been in the game for about 4 years or so now. So what are your thoughts on the current state of paddles, like the technology that we have now? Do you think it has gone a little too far? Because I know a lot of people are kind of worried that the game is getting too fast and that the ball is flying at a dangerously fast speed. Are you in that boat? Do you think it's getting too fast and almost too dangerous, or do you think things are fine the way that they are? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's I think it's getting close. It's mostly fine right now. I don't mind it getting fast, but what I worry about now when I think about it is I think the average skill level of most players needs to elevate to be able to compensate for this additional speed, right? I personally don't have a problem with this extra speed. I play against, I mean, I'm fortunate and I'm lucky enough to have played with some high level pros. I play against them in some of my videos, and so I've seen the speed that the game can be played at, right? And I can handle it and still have fun. Now, if you go to some regular lower level rec players, 3.5 to 4.0, if one person there learns how to hit a really solid or decent drive, but everybody else at that level doesn't know how to soften it, drop it, or even just volley it back or counter it back, then I could see some issues or some problems. Uh, and I'm not saying this happens all the time, but I have seen it happen more where there are players like that. They come into the game, maybe they came from tennis, and sometimes they just lack the tact, to know who they're playing against, what level they're at, and they're just destroying, like banging the ball at these people, and that can be dangerous. You know what I mean? It's like the equivalent of you coming from, I don't know, D1 basketball college, right? And you go to your local gym, like YMCA, and you're posterizing, you know, somebody, right? It like don't you don't need to do that, right? Like have some tact. And in pickleball, I feel that some people lack that tact, and that's what I'm kind of afraid of, because when that happens, then people get upset. Some people could get hurt, and if you learn how to hit it hard, but you don't necessarily know how to control it, it's not safe, or it can be dangerous. Right now, I think it's okay. I think the skill level is increasing, but it's starting to widen. Like the paddle technology is developing, I think now at a rate, or starting to develop at a rate that's a little bit faster than the skill level that I've seen that is required to handle that pace. But I think right now it's still okay for the most part. People will get better, right? And we see it all the time. Regular people are getting better, which is great. The speed is getting better, but I also hope that it doesn't fundamentally change the game too much. Basically what I'm trying to say is I still want to see some balance in the game. I want to see some power. I still want to see a solid control player with good touch be able to succeed. If that type of player can't succeed anymore, then I think it might have gone too far.
Yeah, that's a great point. You kind of bring up a good point that made me think of something. And during the U.S. Open, Yola had just released the Gen 3 paddles that have kind of taken over by storm right now. And there were some people that I used to know or sometimes would play with during open play in my old community that were on the 3.0 skill level. And I remember they had the Black Ace when that paddle came out. They were in line getting the Gen 3 Yola. And I just kept sitting here thinking to myself, like, why are you so focused on getting the paddle that's going to give you the greatest power when the fundamentals aren't there? When I show up to a court and I see an opponent with a Black Ace that I know is like a 3.0 skill level, anytime they pick that paddle back behind their waist, I'm really just prepared to get out of the way because I know exactly what I'm going to see. So I guess my question for you is, do you think that first from a lower level, from a recreation level, is it silly to try and get a paddle thinking it's going to improve your game where you should be focusing on your technique? And then into the pro level, what are we starting to see that's different? So kind of a two-part really loaded question here for you, Will.
Yeah. So I think at the rec level, I would agree with you for the most part, but also I also know some, 2.5, 3.0 players that cannot hit hard whatsoever. They just, the pickleball is their first sport that they played with. They don't have the fundamentals. They can't transfer their weight. So sometimes I do recommend them a more poppy paddle because their regular hit, when the pop comes off that paddle, it's like a normal hit with me, using like a wooden paddle and doing kind of like a full swing. So it makes sense, right? And the interesting about paddles and rec players is, yes, you should probably focus on the fundamentals first. I think you just need to get a paddle that is good enough, right? Don't make it too powerful because it's hard to develop. But even if you get a more powerful paddle, I think it's okay. But as you improve, it's interesting that your paddle kind of profile changes.
Mm-hmm.
So 3.0, 3.5, you can get a harder paddle because at that level, to succeed, all you need to learn how to do, you need to learn how to serve, return. I think you need to learn how to drive. And then after that, it's counter, like volleys and counters. That's it. That's what you need to be successful. And then once you get to maybe 4.0, 4.5, when they know how to counter and block back, you're like, okay, I can't drive anymore. I need to learn how to drop. And if you need to learn how to drop and you had a powerful paddle before and it's hard to drop, then you're going to go for a control or a softer paddle at the 4.0, maybe to 4.5 level. And then once you get to the next level, you graduate from that, you need a little bit more speed. Like hand battles become important. Then you all of a sudden translate back to more powerful paddles. So it's a phase. It's a little different for everyone, but that's kind of how I see paddles when people like ask me for paddle recommendations. I ask them what level they are. If I can see how they play, that really helps me out. And also knowing them a little bit more and see how committed they are to the game and how fast they're developing, I might recommend a paddle like for their game that's good enough now. But also sometimes if I know they're going to improve a lot, I recommend a paddle that's going to be good for them. I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 8 months down the road that they can kind of grow into. So it's a little bit nuanced and difficult, from person to person. I can't just make an overgeneralized statement. But for the most part, you should probably play with a a Gen 1 paddle that is maybe like all court, maybe a little bit more powerful. I think that's why Chris and I recommend like the Prism Flash so much, because it's not technically like thermoform, but it is kind of unibody. It's soft enough, but it also packs enough power. A lot of people can grow into it, and it's affordable, so that's kind of where I fall in between. Hopefully that kind of answers your question.
It did, yeah. And then I'm hoping you can even expand on that too. You kind of talked about where your paddle should be to support your game up to like the 4-5 level. But have you yourself, because I'm assuming you watch a lot of pickleball as well, professional pickleball, have you seen a change in the game in the last couple of years based on paddle technology? And if so, what have you seen has been the biggest impact?
Yeah, right now the biggest impact is the speed, the deflection, that comes off the paddle face, the poppy paddles at the pro level, because they're good enough to hit their drops, hit their dinks with it. And what they need is counter punching, right? And you see a lot more of that now. I know spin is something that a lot of people like to talk about, like when Carbon Gate happened, because you're seeing shots that was not possible before. And now it's all like power and deflection, because those pros, they practice all the time and their skills have caught up to the performance of some of these paddles, right? And now, like just the way that the meta at the pro level is happening, they need that extra pop in the power, because they're all good enough to dink, drop, and get to the kitchen, right? I don't think there's any pros that have a tough time getting to the kitchen, right? And that's where you win. So you get to the kitchen, you're going to either be dinking, waiting, right? Or you're too scared to speed up because the other person has a really powerful paddle. And if they're ready and you make a mistake or you do a speed up at the wrong time, you don't choose your moments well, you're going to get countered and the balls are coming back so fast, you're going to lose. So it's either you're going to see longer rallies, right, for dinking once they get to the kitchen, and it's going to be boring, or you're going to see really short points, serve, drive, third shot drive, and like maybe a 4-shot counter or something like that, because they can get to the kitchen so fast. So yeah, they need power. All they want is all the power they can without losing the ability to like reset and drop to get to the kitchen. It's all speed. Now that I think about it, I'll look at all the paddles up there. They're all thin. They like the 14 millimeters. They all want the hand speed.
Yeah. On a recent episode of the Pickle Pod podcast with Zane Nabertil, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but he brought up an interesting question about how, like in other sports such as baseball, the amateurs, they can use like the really high tech equipment and stuff, but once you get to the big leagues in baseball, they have to use like almost like a dumbed down version, like the like wooden bats and stuff. They can't use aluminum bats and stuff like that. And he was bringing up a point that was pretty interesting. Like, what if in pickleball it was kind of the same thing? Like amateurs can use all these top of the line, state of the art new paddles, but what if the pros had to use like not as powerful paddles and not as high tech of a paddle, since they know how to generate speed and power naturally just because of their high level abilities that they have. And I thought that was very interesting. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that would be something that should ever be implemented or nah?
Yeah, I think it can be implemented. And I'm for it. I'm definitely for it to at least trying it out. It couldn't hurt. And honestly, the pro product that we get to watch now, in my opinion, needs to be improved anyways. So yeah, experiment with it. Do it. I don't think anybody's going to be, maybe the pros will be upset. I don't know. But if they're all in the same kind of playing field, I doubt they'll be upset. Let the skills shine. And for us as viewers, I don't know. I personally don't care, just as long as I get to see some good pickleball. As long as the game becomes more varied, right, at the pro level, and I can see differing styles, that makes it interesting. Like I want to see a control game. I want to see somebody who can generate a little bit more power just naturally, and I want to see somebody who has fast hands. They know they have fast hands, and they're the ones that engage or start the speed up battle because that's the game that they want to play. That becomes interesting. So yeah, I'm all for it. Like limiting the paddles, the pros. I wouldn't say maybe dumbed down per se or less tech. I would like to see those paddles still be kind of technologically advanced, but just not as powerful. So yeah, like maybe it's more durable. I don't know. What do you think? Do you guys think that if all the pros had to play with, I don't know, a wooden paddle, like a Dillard or something, right? Do you think that would change the rankings a bit on who's successful and who's not? I'd be very curious to see like who benefits from that. Like, are the Johns brothers still gonna be up there? I'm sure, like Dylan and J Dub, they'll probably still be good, but some people I feel like I don't know, they won't adjust that well. But I could be wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree with you. I would definitely love to see something like that, and I do think that the rankings would look a little different if everybody had to use a similar, less advanced paddle. What about you, Eddie?
Well, all right. So 7 years ago, my favorite pro event to watch was men's doubles. And now it's shifted to women's doubles. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, generally speaking, the top male pros hit the ball harder than the top female pros. And right now in men's doubles, it's maybe 5 or 6 dinks, 2 shots, and a put away. It's not very entertaining. And I do believe that that is a result of, yes, the skill level, the strength, the youthfulness, the agility of our male players has gone up, but the paddle technology has also increased as well. And that's why I like to watch pro women's doubles now, because even though the paddle technology has sped up, to your point, Will, they have the ability to counter very well. But I'm afraid that that's going to continue to grow and continue to become less entertaining as paddle technology grows. So I do think that for us to be able to make the most entertaining product out there, we need to be careful with how far paddle technology will go. And I love the idea of experimenting with maybe not going as far back as wooden paddles, but maybe changing the deflection rate, the grit, all of the factors that lead to having a powerful spinny paddle, and seeing if it will lead to a different product. I don't think that if we did that, the top 5 male and top 5 female players would change around that much when it came to ranking. But outside of that, there might be a top 20 male who gets away with the fact that they can just hit the ball really hard and are very athletic. Well, now you put a wooden paddle in their hand, or a paddle that maybe is not as powerful. Maybe they're not there anymore. And at the end of the day, what makes a pickleball player a good pickleball player? I think it's all aspects of it. It's the soft game. It's the hard game. It's the agility. And I think if we did what Zane Nevertell was proposing and we talked about and scale back pedal technology for pros, we would find out, to me, who the true best pickleball players in the world are. We'd be much more likely to than with the trajectory of our current paddles.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I think that would be very interesting. I don't know what the chances of that actually happening are, but I would love it.
We started doing this in my local facility here in Tulsa, but a few of us have gotten a bunch of trainer paddles, or even the paddles that are just much smaller in head size, and we've been playing a lot with them. And we have games where we only play with trainer paddles, and other people have caught on, and they come to join us, and at all skill levels, and they have a lot of fun. And now we're about to have a tournament, maybe a couple nights or leagues or events where it's like trainer paddles only, right? And I might expand it to just either trainer paddles or just like wooden paddles, and you can only play with that. And it's just so much fun. You like fall in love with pickleball again because you can see, what people are doing. You get those crazy points and those rallies, and then I can swing super hard with like a wooden paddle or a trainer paddle, but it doesn't go that far. But if I hit it at the right spot, maybe it will. But it's a lot of fun. I seriously suggest that you guys try that.
That sounds awesome. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I actually have 4 of the focus trainers that our friends Rose and Don from Kalamazoo, Michigan created. And Webby, you remember playing with those at Beer City Open a few years back?
Yeah, that was super fun. Like it really helped too. Like I could see because it's mainly so you can learn to focus on hitting the sweet spot. And like when you look at it, like the paddle is like this big, it just barely the surface is barely bigger than the ball. You would think it was impossible, but it actually wasn't that bad once you got used to it. And I had a blast playing with those things. But Will, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for joining us here. Before we part ways, I do actually want to issue a little bit of a challenge. Eddie isn't even familiar with this challenge I'm about to issue, but I would love to do an Eddie and Webby versus Pickleball Studio match at some point, but with a little stipulation. After you both kick our asses, because that's a guarantee, I would love to like kind of mix things up and do like a Webby and Will versus Eddie and Chris match. I think that's where it would be at. That's where the entertainment value would be, because that would be, I think, a fairly balanced match. And I think that could be really fun. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm totally in. I'm totally down. I never back away from the challenge. I know Chris would be for it as well. He never backs down either. I think it's just finding when to do it. Maybe we'll come to Michigan. I do like coming over to Michigan. I also need to hit up Sophie and Hugh from Revlin as well. I've been meaning to go visit them and they would talk to them as well. But yeah, I'm totally down. We're supposed to also play against Zane and Thomas from the Pickle Pod as well. Jordan and Jordan Briones and Aiden Newhoff as well. So yeah, we got these things all in the works, but we haven't settled dates. So yeah, put you guys on the list for sure. We'll make it happen.
That'd be super fun. We got to make this happen at some point. I know it's going to be hard to get everybody's schedules to jive, but that would be so cool. Is there anything you would like to say to our audience, whether it be how they can follow you or just any parting words? The microphone is yours.
All right. If you guys want to, you guys can follow me on my socials, and YouTube is just Pickleball Will. Go out there, keep having fun, and keep just spreading the word of the game, and keep it light, keep it hearted. Don't take it too seriously. At the end of the day, you're hitting a plastic ball over a net into a box, so it ain't that serious. Just go out there and have fun with it. That's it.
Nice. Very wise words. But yeah, this was awesome. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a great night.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Man, that was super cool getting the chance to talk to Will. He's a very fun person to have involved in the pickleball world.
I definitely agree. I love what he's been able to do to help elevate the production quality of a lot of the content out there on YouTube. Webby, I think that when we came in, it was here and we brought it to here, and now he's even helped to bring it to here, which really makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Will and Chris from Pickleball Studio, both of them really elevated the pickleball content world, and I love to see it. That's going to make everything better for everybody.
That's right.
But I thought this was a great episode, but you know what else I think is great?
Closing thoughts.
So what did we learn today? We learned that if you're going to smash your paddle, you might as well smash the hell out of it. Boys, they like to coach girls, even when those girls are better than them. And guess what? You should really knock it off. We learned that Chris Callie from Sorry Not Sorry Pickleball should start a segment called Hook of the Week, where he finds the worst hook calls from PPA events and starts calling them out. And maybe, just maybe, that's going to help us get to the point to where some of these pro players who are notorious for making bad line calls can actually be penalized for it. On top of that, we should really get a system like close call replay in every single pro event so that we can actually make legitimate line challenge calls and get good visibility into it versus the stuff that we see today that's just subpar. It's not meeting what we need. And we learned from our good friend Pickleball Will that paddle technology has definitely changed, and it's really changing the landscape of pro pickleball, and there might actually come a point in the near future where that change might be detrimental to the sport.
Yeah, that was a great summary of the episode, and I thought this was another really fun episode as well.
You know what else is fun? Is having products from Jigsaw Health where it's fun to feel good. And Webby, I have a question for you. How do you like to stay hydrated?
Well, when I play pickleball, my favorite thing to do is mix a packet of the Electrolyte Supreme Fruit Punch flavor into a bottle of water. I do that in 2 separate bottles of water. I drink one of those bottles before I play pickleball, and then I drink the second one towards the end of my playing session. And that combined with drinking water throughout has been perfect for keeping myself nice and hydrated.
Jigsaw Health has tons of great products that are really designed to make you feel good. At Jigsaw Health, it's fun to feel good. I use their stuff every single day. And what's even better is if you want to go to jigsawhealth.com and use coupon code PB4Life10, you're going to get what, Webby?
You're going to get $10 off your order.
That's right. Not only are you going to get your hands on some great products that are going to keep you feeling good, you're also going to help out the channel, which we really appreciate. So thank you very much for checking out jigsawhealth.com. Webby, I got to say, another great episode. I love this new format. I love the topics that we're covering. I love the memes that we're going through. Is there anything else that you love about it?
I love everybody who tunes in. Thank you very much.
That's right. And on that note, I'm Eddie.
And until next time, this is Webby, not Eddie, signing off.
See ya.
Well, we're dinking around with Eddie and Webby. Dinking around with Eddie and Webby tonight.
Oh yeah.